everyone. I'm Lisa Giacomelli. I'm the director of North Carolina Science Olympiad. Today, I'm here with you to talk a little bit about our Dynamic Planet event for Division BC for the 2026 season. Some objectives for our session today. We are going to review the Dynamic Planet event, give it a good once over. We'll talk a little bit about the event objectives, various key elements, and we'll highlight some important areas that you should be aware of. We'll talk about students who might enjoy doing this event for you, some preparation strategies, of course, some practice questions, and we'll share out some resources for you. This is a Division BC event, so you'll notice that there are two sets of rules, one for Division B middle school and one for Division C high school. When you look at them side by side, they're very similar. They're actually identical until you get to the end. You'll notice there's an additional content row for Division C. But other than that, they're identical for Division B and Division C. All right, we'll start with what is Dynamic Planet. This is a core knowledge event, Earth and space science event that's running in Division B and C for 2026. Dynamic Planet's usually on the event slate year after year. Students demonstrate their understanding of physical oceanography and geological oceanography. So they'll see the basics, they'll learn about tides, waves, properties of water, and different coastal features. It's a really cool content area for kids that enjoy the beach and studying the ocean. What can teams bring with them to competition? So they can bring two Class 2 calculators. If you are curious what a Class 1 calculator is, what a Class 2 calculator is, the differences between them, take a look at the rule book. In the back, there's a page dedicated to breaking down the differences between calculators, and it provides pictures. So this screenshot on the slide came out of that page in the rule book. So if you're confused on the calculator lingo, take a look at this page. This event in particular uses a Class 2 calculator, which is a non-graphing, non-programmable calculator, sometimes called a scientific calculator. So it's not your bare bones basic calculator, it's next step up. And it gives you some examples of different calculators that you can get. So that's kind of handy. And a binder of any size with notes and information. Notice it says any size. I think in the past this event was limited to maybe a 2-inch binder, but now it's any size with anything in it. So that excites kids, but it also poses a bit of a challenge for them because, they try to bring in the biggest, most enormous binder ever, which is not always the best strategy. How is this event run? So there's two possible formats. It can be a sit-down test, or kids can be required to rotate through stations. In North Carolina, we generally just do a sit-down test for this one. So it's typically a paper and pencil test. Traditional exam, they've got pictures, images, graphs, maps, data, things that they look at. They answer questions about it. The kids come in, they sit together, and they take the test together. They're given one test, one answer sheet, and the set of partners work on that test together. There is a possibility it could be a station test. Less likely for us in North Carolina that we'll run a station test for this one, but it's possible. The students rotate through stations, so each station is a set of questions based on something, or could just be straight multiple choice questions, fill in the blank questions, who knows, a variety of things. But they do have a very set time limit at each station, and they rotate station to station around the room. That takes a little bit of practice. Any kind of station event requires a little bit of practice. They have to understand that they can't go back. So once the time at that station is done, they're moving on and they will not have access to those questions anymore. So train them on that a little bit. You also need to train them because they might not necessarily start at station 1. So they have to pay attention to which station they're assigned to when they come in and where they're starting, and make sure that they're writing those answers in the correct spot on their answer sheet. So practice that. Give them a practice station test and throw them in at station 9, and then have them work all the way through to the end and then have to come back to station 1 to make sure that they're recording answers in the right spot on their answer sheet. They're earning points based on the number of correct answers that they get. The goal is to get one more correct than the other teams to win. So they don't necessarily have to get 100% on this test in order to win. It just entirely depends on the other teams that are competing that day, how challenging the test is that day. So a lot of kids think, oh man, I really blew that. It was way hard, and then they end up placing anyway. So it's not necessarily the goal to get 100%. The important things to note. So the focus this year is on physical and geological aspects of the ocean. Organisms are not a part of this event, so don't worry about that. The rules are identical for B and C, except for one topic area, which is 3.J. It's on the second page for Division C, the very last bullet point. That's an additional topic area for Division C that Division B does not need to worry about. And you want to make use of the binder. So it can be any size, but that's a bit tricky. So you need to coach your kids on that. That binder size doesn't excuse preparation. You can't just stuff a bunch of information in that binder and expect to roll into the event and be successful. So you really need to strategize with your binder use. And know how to read maps. So that will be a component of this. You see a lot of map reading in our other events like meteorology and road scholar. So maybe you want to focus on kids that have done those events before or have some familiarity there, but you want to make sure that they know how to read maps. Changes to the event. So as I said, 2020 was the last time this ran, maybe 2021. So if you're looking for old resources, you have to backtrack a few years. It's a different topic focus this year than last year, so don't just assume that practice tests or resources from 2025 will apply to 2026 because the topic has changed, and there's some new content included in the rules for this year as well. Who may be best suited for this event? Kids that love the ocean, kids that love going to the beach, they love exploring, they've taken earth science. They're going to need to be good researchers. This is a heavy content event. So they're going to need to enjoy reading and working with a textbook and looking up information, learning a lot of information in a short amount of time. Have experience with maps like we mentioned, and then considering careers in various aspects, marine science. It's definitely not a hard one to sell, especially when it's oceanography. Some of the other content areas like plate tectonics, that tends to be a tough one to sell to kids to get into, but the ocean is cool. So I don't think you'll have any issue finding kids to want to study this. Some preparation strategies. So first and foremost, breaking down the rules and the different sections in the rules. So at the top, you have your event parameters under number 2. It describes what you can bring to the event, the type of calculators that you can bring to the event, the things that you cannot bring to the event. Section 3, it breaks down the competition. So it tells you the format of the event. It tells you the content that will be covered. I would work my way through this content list and just check things off, have kids learn and research each topic one thing at a time. If there are terms listed in these rules, for example, stratification or thermocline, if those terms are listed as examples in the rules, have the kids know the words. They will most likely see them if they're listed as examples there. And then section 4 at the end just talks about scoring. It's a high score wins test, and there are tiebreakers embedded in the event. So in advance, the event leader selects questions that are used as tiebreakers. They're generally the more challenging questions on the test. And then if any ties come up, we take a look at who got those questions correct, and then they would get the higher score of the 2 or 3, however many ties there are. All right, some preparation strategies. You definitely need to be organized for this event, some kind of organizational system for your kids. It should be team driven. So I know we think we know best when it comes to how to organize things, but you need to make sure that whatever organizational system you have in place, the kids have some ownership of that and it works for the set of students that you're working with. What works for one team might not necessarily work for another. So you got to figure out how your specific kids work best in terms of organization. Make sure students have the basics. So I would sit down with the rules, go through the topics, and conquer the vocabulary first. You really can't get into a higher level until the kids have a solid foundation. Try to figure out the best way your kids take notes. These are all strategies that you know as a teacher. Differentiate between what's important and what's interesting. And this is unique for this event, I think, because the ocean is really cool. There's a lot of awesome things to learn about it, but that can easily derail the kids. So make sure you're like, okay, this is really cool and interesting, but it's not going to be on the test. So don't spend too much time on it. help guide them on what's a good resource versus a bad resource. We all know there's a lot of websites out there that are really good, and then there's a lot of websites out there that are not. Quiz them regularly. So don't just cut them loose and then expect them to be able to run with it. Check in with them. Set up practice tests for them and quiz them on different sections of content within the rules to help keep them on track. Don't stick to only obvious sources because every team in North Carolina is going to be using the same resources, the ones that pop up first when you search for something. So try to dig a little bit deeper and find some unique resources. That'll give you a bit of a leg up over others. Mix up the practical things versus the theoretical things and make sure you're hitting on both. Gave you some examples there, and reading maps is definitely a component of this. So make sure if you need a little more support on that, you can check out Road Scholar Meteorology because there's a lot of foundational work in reading maps in those events. Okay, the binder. This is a binder event which adds, the kids get super pumped about this, but it also adds a level of challenge to it, which they might not realize. Any size is permitted. A good binder is like having an open book test, but you know has unique challenges to it as well. Make sure they utilize the binder in all their studying, all their practice, so that they're extremely comfortable with that binder. I would suggest having two binders, one for each kid. They can be identical, that's fine. But if one gets lost or one forgets to bring it, you have that other one as backup. The first page in your binder should be the copy of the rules so that they know that they're there. They refer to them often, and there's never any question of, oh, do I need to know this or do I not need to know this? It's just right there in the binder always. Easy to read tables. Make sure it is organized into sections that work for the kids. Put some tabs in there. The more organized it is, the easier it will be for them to use it. Focus on the things that you have to look up or don't understand. So if there's something they already know, sometimes they want this like comfort blanket and they want to stick everything and anything in that binder, but reassure them like, hey, you know this, you don't need to put this in your binder because it's in your brain. And include other tests with keys and work shown. So if they come across a very difficult problem that they did not know and they eventually researched it and figured it out, have them place that in their binder so that they can refer to it. A little bit more on the binder. Include multiple pictures of the same thing because a lot of times our event leaders, our test writers are getting pictures online. So it's helpful to have various images in there that you might find that are showing the same thing. Keep it small enough to be useful, but big enough to be comprehensive. That's easier said than done. You got to figure out exactly what needs to be in that binder and what doesn't need to be in that binder. They have to be able to find things in there fast. So I would say no more than 10 seconds to find anything in that binder. And if they build this binder themselves, they're going to know the binder inside and out, and they're going to know what's in there and where to find it. So challenge them with that. Say, if you can't find information in this binder in 10 seconds, you got to reorganize. Make sure you can read it. Make sure the fonts are good. A lot of times they want the teeniest, tiniest little font, but that's not always necessarily a good thing. You can use sheet protectors, have a table of contents, use page numbers, avoid walls of text. So sometimes they find a really great website and they just print it out and stick it in the binder. And that's really overwhelming when you're on a time crunch trying to find information. So try to summarize the information you're finding in bullet points or something that's easy to glance at and be like, oh, that's it. Instead of just printing out massive amounts of text. And a common mistake is not knowing the information in the binder. They think, oh, it's in the binder, I can look it up, I don't have to know it. But a lot of our highly competitive teams know their information really well, and the binder is just supplementary. So it's a reference, not a textbook. Don't blindly copy content into your binder. Make sure that they actually take the time to read it and study it and learn it before they stuff it in there. Some practice questions. This first link here will take you to a practice test from North Carolina Science Olympiad. So this is one of our old tests. This ran several years ago. It is oceanography topic and it is a sit-down test. So there is the test included here, the answer sheet, and the answer key. There are some other links here of practice tests that I found for you. I tried to take the legwork out of it for you so that you just had a handful of tests that you can use as practice or practice question sets to use with your kids. Some resources, our event pages, National Science Olympiad, North Carolina Science Olympiad event pages are great. place to start. National has a lot of sample questions. They release tests. They have starter packs if you're willing to pay a few bucks. Notes and release tests. The Dynamic Planet Wiki is a great place to start. It's not necessarily Science Olympiad sponsored, but it's an amazing website with a forum and a test exchange, and you can go back and look at old forums from prior years when this ran. It's a really great website. I highly recommend that. And then some other resource links that I included there for you that you can explore. Textbooks. This is a content event. You're going to need a textbook to work with. Kids think that they can just research online, which you might get away with, but you really can't go wrong with ordering a great oceanography textbook or one or two to see which one the kids enjoy. So I gave you a bunch of links here that you can go through and pick. They tend to be pricey. I get that. But maybe you could get a used book. Maybe you can check your local universities if they have one that you could borrow or the library. Just explore different ways to get a cheap textbook for the kids. I think having a book in hand is really helpful for them for this event. Some activities, don't forget to make it fun. So don't get too engrossed in just learning content. Make sure you give them hands-on activities to do, give them some lab work to do. Spice it up a little bit for them. So I linked a few activities here that you could easily there's a lot of cool things that you could do with Coriolis, that you can do with properties of seawater, different models that you can make. Any way that you can make it hands-on and tangible and relatable for them will help them learn the content better. All right, final thoughts. I mean, just make sure that you don't lose sight of making it fun for the kids. Hands-on experiences, review those rules, the topics and the rules over and over and over again. There's a lot of detail there. It's very easy to miss something. So make sure you print out the rules and highlight and check off what they do and check behind them to make sure they're covering everything. Make it visual and relatable whenever you can. This is one of those events that can get really heavy for them if they just sit down and start reading and researching and taking notes and they're not doing anything beyond that. So it can get really monotonous. So make sure you help them make visuals and make images and charts and graphs whenever they can to help them understand. Encourage them to read and watch videos. There's so many good videos out there that they can sit down and watch and take notes on. And the videos are kind of interesting and exciting. So encourage them to do that. And that's it. If you have any questions on Dynamic Planet, please send them my way. We will post any clarifications or FAQs on the resource page of our website. We'll keep working on it as we get into tournaments. And we wish you the best and reach out to us if you have any questions whatsoever. We're here for you.